The history and background of the military rule in Thailand and its impact on the people and the economy. Thailand is a country that has experienced many episodes of military rule in its modern history. The first coup happened in 1932, when a group of young officers and civilians abolished the absolute monarchy and established a constitutional system. However, since then, the army has intervened in politics more than a dozen times, often overthrowing elected governments and suspending civil liberties. The most recent coup took place in 2014, after months of political turmoil and street protests between supporters and opponents of former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra, who was ousted by the military in 2006. The army chief, General Prayuth Chan-o-cha, declared himself the head of a ruling junta called the National Council for Peace and Order, NCPO, which banned political gatherings, censored the media, detained critics, and drafted a new constitution that gave the military more power and influence. The coup was widely condemned by the international community and human rights groups, but welcomed by some anti-government protesters who accused Thaksin and his allies of corruption and abuse of power. The junta claimed that its intervention was necessary to restore order and stability, and to pave the way for political reforms and national reconciliation. However, 7 years later, many Thais are still dissatisfied with the military-backed government that emerged from the 2019 elections, which were widely seen as unfair and rigged in favor of Prayuth's party. The opposition parties have faced legal challenges and harassment, while the pro-democracy movement has staged mass rallies demanding a new constitution, a new election, and an end to the monarchy's involvement in politics. The military rule has also had a negative impact on Thailand's economy and society. The country has suffered from low growth, high inequality, poor governance, environmental degradation, and social polarization. The COVID-19 pandemic has worsened the situation, exposing the weaknesses of the public health system and pushing millions of people into poverty and unemployment. The tourism sector, which accounts for about 20% of GDP, has been hit hard by travel restrictions and lockdowns. The future of Thailand remains uncertain and unpredictable. The military still holds a dominant position in the political system, but faces growing resistance from a younger generation that demands more freedom, democracy, and justice. The monarchy, which has traditionally been revered as a unifying force, has also become a source of controversy and division, as some Thais question its role and legitimacy. The country is at a crossroads, where it must choose between continuing on the path of authoritarianism or embracing a more democratic and inclusive future. The strategies and tactics of the opposition parties and movements to mobilize public support and challenge the regime through protests, campaigns, and legal actions. The opposition parties and movements in Thailand have used various strategies and tactics to mobilize public support and challenge the regime through protests, campaigns, and legal actions. Some of these are forming a broad coalition of progressive and populist forces. The Move Forward Party, MFP, and the Futai Party, PTP, have joined hands to form a coalition that represents a diverse range of political views, social groups, and regions. The coalition aims to end the military-backed rule and restore democracy and human rights in Thailand. Leveraging social media and online platforms. The opposition parties and movements have used social media and online platforms to reach out to the public, especially the young voters, who are more tech-savvy and politically aware. They have used hashtags, memes, live streams, podcasts, and online forums to spread their messages, mobilize supporters, organize events, and raise funds. Holding peaceful rallies and demonstrations. The opposition parties and movements have held peaceful rallies and demonstrations across the country to voice their demands, such as dissolving the parliament, rewriting the constitution, reforming the monarchy, and releasing political prisoners. They have also used creative methods, such as flash mobs, art installations, symbolic gestures, and cultural performances, to attract attention and express their views. Engaging in civil disobedience and non-cooperation. The opposition parties and movements have engaged in civil disobedience and non-cooperation to disrupt the normal functioning of the regime and show their defiance. They have boycotted official events, refused to pay taxes, withdrawn money from banks, blocked roads and railways, cut off electricity and water supplies, and staged strikes and sit-ins. Filing lawsuits and petitions. The opposition parties and movements have filed lawsuits and petitions to challenge the legitimacy and legality of the regime and its policies. They have also sought international support and intervention from human rights organizations, foreign governments, and regional bodies. These strategies and tactics have helped the opposition parties and movements to gain public support and challenge the regime through protests, campaigns, and legal actions. They have also contributed to their success in the 2023 national elections, where they delivered a crushing blow to the military-backed parties. The 2023 election was a historic moment for Thailand, as it marked the end of nearly a decade of military-backed rule and the rise of a new opposition coalition that challenged the establishment. The election results showed a clear victory for the opposition parties Move Forward and Pheu Thai, which together won 292 seats out of 500 in the House of Representatives, surpassing the 251 seats needed for a majority. The main party supporting the incumbent Prime Minister Prayuth Chan-o-cha, Palong Pracharat, suffered a humiliating defeat, winning only 40 seats, down from 116 in the previous election. The other parties allied with the military, such as Bumjathai and Democrat, also lost ground, while some new parties, such as UTN and Chart Thai Patana, gained some seats. The election outcome was a reflection of the widespread dissatisfaction with the military-backed government, which had been accused of corruption, human rights violations, economic mismanagement, and suppressing dissent. The opposition parties campaigned on a platform of democratic reform, social justice, economic recovery, and national reconciliation. They also promised to amend the constitution that was drafted by the military junta in 2017 and gave it an unfair advantage in the electoral system. The opposition parties appealed to a broad spectrum of voters, especially the young and urban population, who had been at the forefront of pro-democracy protests in 2020 and 2021. The reaction of the military to the election result was initially cautious and restrained. The army chief Apparat Konsampong congratulated the opposition parties on their victory and pledged to respect the will of the people and uphold the constitutional monarchy. He also urged all sides to maintain peace and stability and avoid violence and confrontation. However, some sources suggested that there was discontent and division within the military ranks over the election outcome and the future role of the army in politics. Some hardline factions within the military were reportedly unhappy with Prayuth's failure to secure his position and were considering staging another coup to prevent the opposition from forming a government. The reaction of the opposition parties was jubilant and optimistic. The leaders of Move Forward and Pheu Thai held a joint press conference to announce their intention to form a coalition government and nominate Pita Limjaroenrat, the leader of Move Forward, as their prime ministerial candidate. They also invited other parties that shared their vision of democratic change to join their coalition. They thanked their supporters for their trust and courage and vowed to work together to fulfill their promises and restore democracy and dignity to Thailand. The reaction of the international community was mostly positive and supportive. Many countries and organizations welcomed the peaceful conduct of the election and congratulated the opposition parties on their victory. They also expressed their hope that Thailand would move forward with democratic reform and national reconciliation and play a constructive role in regional and global affairs. Some countries, such as China and Russia, were more reserved in their comments and stressed their respect for Thailand's sovereignty and internal affairs. Some human rights groups and activists also urged the international community to monitor the situation closely and hold the new government accountable for its human rights commitments.